Nice. Welcome everybody to the December issue of the Flatcar office hours. We have a pretty lightweight meeting today. It's supposed to be more of a loose and friendly round of sharing experiences. Mathieu has a little report on his experience getting Flatcar run on, is it Linode or Linode?
I don't know yet. I still don't know. Linode.
Linode. Okay, just for the record, I'm gonna briefly share my screen so folks can take a look at the agenda. Here we go, and that's the agenda. So we have a quick intro and brief check-in. So that's basically just saying hi. I would encourage the non-regulars to just say a few words on what brings them here. And we have a single news item, and that is we won't have any releases in the festive days. So we'll be back in January. There's roughly a 1 month gap. And we're already planning a stable release that'll ship a few fixes for some long-standing bugs. And for that reason, we won't do any release planning today either. So it will be a pretty lightweight meeting, as said. And having said that, switching to the welcome part. So maybe Steve and Mateusz. Mateusz, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Oh. Yes.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah. How about now? Hello. Yeah, so I'm a Microsoft engineer, and in private time I also use Flatcar for my fleet and various like boxes on the internet. And yeah, I also work on the cluster API support for Flatcar, and I started to take care of the Flatcar community galleries on Azure, so there is an easier way to release Flatcar images and also consume them from us external users. I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thanks. Steven?
Hi, Steve Harris with Coinbase. We use Flatcar on most of our machines in our Kubernetes cluster. And as we've, 2 beta releases ago, made available an upstream kernel fix for a network problem, trying to roll Flatcar out to be used on all of our machines again. We had been working around the problem for a while, trying some Ubuntu stuff. We're back in business with Flatcar.
Awesome, that's great to hear. And it's always great having users on the call, because that's, well, it gives us a great way to know which way's up, right? So feedback from users always welcome. All right, switching to our one single topic that we have for today before sharing our experiences with Flatcar. And that is Mathieu with an update on Linode support.
Okay, thanks, Tilo. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so you should see some slides. If you don't, please speak. So I'm going to discuss today about Flatcar and Linode support. So starting with why I wanted to experiment on this cloud provider. Basically, I wanted to host a mail server using Flatcar as a proof of concept and to see how we can easily deploy a web server, a mail server, sorry, using Flatcar and Mailco. I've been inspired by Tilo with the Mastodon setup to quickly release something using Flatcar and butane configuration. So yeah, I wanted to do the same thing with a mail server. But something really boring is that with many cloud providers, they tend to block the external traffic for the port 25 to prevent spamming and stuff like that. So it's quite complicated if you want to host your own mail server to use these ports on the cloud providers. And unfortunately, we need this port for Mailco. So I published a tweet on Mastodon to complain about this, and someone from the community answered me that he tried to run a mail server using Linode a couple of months ago, I don't know. And yeah, indeed, so I browsed the tickets and the documentation on Linode, and it seems that it's possible to have the ports being opened. And turned out that you don't need to ask them to explicitly open their sports. By default, they just open. So this is really cool because I open a ticket and they just answer me, it is already open. So don't need to open a ticket. It was back in the days. Now you can just deploy your stuff and it will work. So I've been trying to install Flatcar on Linode. So this is the first step. And basically it's not yet supported, officially supported by Linode. So you need to trick a bit if you want to install Flatcar on this cloud provider. So I followed this blog post from Flatcar users, actually, and he detailed how he deployed Flatcar on Linode. And yeah, so you need to choose an image, whatever image you want, Alpine, Ubuntu. It doesn't we don't care about the OS, and basically you will just create a new disk and attach this disk to the operating system. Then you will boot in rescue mode, and once you have booted in rescue mode, you are going to install Flatcar on the new disk you just created. So using the Flatcar install script. And once you did that, you are able to boot an instance using Flatcar. So yeah, it's a bit hacky because from the user interface, you will see that you have an Alpine or Ubuntu deployed into your cloud provider, but in the end, it's a Flatcar that's being deployed. So I'm going to quickly share my screen to show you from the UI, how does it look? Okay. So you should now see my Linode account, and there is this Alpine image that I'm going to start while I'm talking. Power on, and we can just inspect quickly the configuration. So I have two disks, one for the data, so we don't really care, but one important is Flatcar boot, so it's a 10 gig disk. And this is where we run the Flatcar install script to install Flatcar on the disk. And this is the most interesting part. Actually, this is really interesting from Linode to have this. You can select the configuration when you boot a node. So this is the original configuration. So Alpine Linux with grub2. And now this is my own configuration. So Flatcar configuration. So you can easily boot one or the other, and you can supply as many configurations as you want. And if you edit the configuration, you will see that this is the disk where I created install Flatcar, and this is my data, and I'm on them onto this part. There's a file system. So in the end, you just need to select. If you want to select a kernel, you just need to select direct disk because the Flatcar install does provide the NBR partition with all the stuff like grub2 and the kernel. No, sorry, grub. And so yeah, using these parameters, you are able to boot the instance and to properly access Flatcar. So now I started the instance. So I don't have my SSH key on this computer, but using the console, yeah. So I now see that I have a bunch of logs from Flatcar, but yeah, we can see. Okay, so I'm going to stop all this service. So this is the message, the Docker messages, because I have a bunch of Docker images running on it. But yeah, this is actually a Flatcar installation. So now we are seeing this, we can ask ourselves what's the next step for the next weeks. So I would like to bring ignition support to Linode because it's not yet supported, and that would be awesome to bring Fedora CoreOS and Flatcar and other operating system relying on Ignition onto these cloud providers. There is a bit of challenge, but yeah, discuss about that with CoreOS folks, and that should be doable. So we will try to submit a proof of concept in the next month. But yeah, that's the idea. And also, yeah, I will certainly write a blog post. So I already started to explain what I said and how to run mail server on Linode using Flatcar. So yeah, that's it for us. If you have any question.
That's a great presentation. Thank you, Matthew. One question that I have, because I tried something similar for Hetzner, but then basically having the same challenges and ending up using the Rescue OS to install Flatcar. Though I had a slightly different approach, so I automated this stuff from the start with Terraform. So is there a Terraform provider for Linode that we should investigate supporting in the future? Even just having some snippets of example code.
Yeah, there is a provider. It's minimalistic, but it works, and yeah, it's doable. But I'm not sure we can interact with the rescue mode using Terraform. So this is something to investigate. But yeah, there is a Terraform provider.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Thanks. All right. It's Flatcar usage sharing time. So we have two users, and we are users ourselves, of course. Matthew mentioned my Mastodon plaything, which I may introduce at the end if there's a little time left. And yeah, so Matthew obviously is a strong user of Flatcar themselves. Stephen, would you give us a little bit of insight on your Flatcar story and like recent developments?
Like I mentioned earlier, we use Flatcar on all of the machines in our Kubernetes clusters, and
I think
the appeal.
Stephen, your mic is picking up a lot of environment noises.
Background noise. I'm not sure what I can do about that right now.
Actually, you just moved closer to the computer and it went a lot better. So maybe that's the solution.
I wonder if it's using my computer's microphone rather than my headphone. So we use Flatcar on our Kubernetes clusters for really two main reasons. One is we like that there's no package manager and it's fairly thin. So the surface of what people are tempted to vary on it is smaller. And, there's going to be less sort of configuration drift from people trying to get onto these machines and installing things that would change them, make them different. Also, the automatic updates are a big pull for us. There are some challenges that we face, though. One is trying to prevent too many machines from rebooting around the same time. We don't use XCD right now to try to coordinate that. There's a Kubernetes operator that you can use to try to coordinate that, but we haven't invested in using that yet. The other thing, I know you asked for a story, but I'll just pose this as a question. The thing I've wondered about is we tend to choose a particular Flatcar image, an AMI in AWS EC2, and change our mind about it maybe once every 3 to 6 months. But that means that every new machine that's born starts life at this image that's getting older and older. So after a while, every machine that's born is going to need to be rebooted shortly afterward in order to catch up with the others. And I'm just wondering if we're doing it wrong, or if you guys anticipate that people will be very frequently changing the AMI that they use so that they're starting out with a fresher and fresher image as time goes on. Just that's how to reconcile the difference between auto updating in Flatcar, but our initial configuration tends to stay fairly static for months on end. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Do we have any AWS knowledgeable folks on the call who could help out?
Because I can imagine maybe there's a way with AWS. I've never done it where you can almost like track a latest tag to say that there's more of a release line of AMIs, and there's some notion of there being the latest one in that line, kind of like you do with container images. We try to avoid doing that because it means in a way you never really know what you're getting first. But then again, if you have the automatic updates enabled soon afterward, you don't really know what you're getting either.
Yeah,
it's going to just download something very fresh.
That's actually interesting input. So we have a few folks not here today because of one reason or the other. It might just be the fastest way to catch them before vacation and just cut an issue. I could imagine that there's either like a straightforward answer to that, or it's a rather complicated problem. Also, we have an AWS Marketplace offer, but out of the blue, I can't even tell whether that's still a sponsoring offer where you'd actually pay for sponsoring the projects, or whether we have free images available there at all as well. Marketplace, I think, would be a good option to use for having the latest image available, because via the marketplace, I think there's definitely the option to take the latest image. So I mean,
okay, I probably just don't know how to specify that as like I'm very well versed on how to pick a particular AMI and tell our machines to use it in the launch templates, but I've never tried it to say like follow along as the latest moves. That's an interesting idea.
So I take it that the launch templates that you're using take rather significant effort to update. So that's hard to automate.
It's not too hard. It's just something I guess we don't think about it frequently.
Gotcha.
That makes any sense. Like we come back around and say, hey, usually when it's time to update our Kubernetes version, we want to run some upgrades, and we know we're going to replace a whole bunch of machines.
Yeah.
That's usually the time where we'll say, let's go see how the tip of Flatcar is doing right now. Advance it to something very recent, try it out, and then nail it down and not think about it again for a few months.
I see Mateusz raising his hand.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much related. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how much related this is, but I was just out of curiosity looking how we've done this in Locomotive Kubernetes and how Typhoon is doing it. And yeah, I'm sorry, my audio is like going crazy today. I was looking how this was done in Locomotive Kubernetes and how Typhoon is doing it, and like what we've been doing, where we were looking up the ME IDs, and there was like the most recent option there. So at least from the Terraform point of view, there is a way to actually select the latest ME based on like matching the name. So maybe that's something to explore.
Right. So each time that you go to update the configuration, you can go and find out what the latest one is and get that. What I don't know is whether it's possible to write a launch template in a way that doesn't actually fix a particular AMI in use, but rather says that every time a machine is created, and that's going to use the latest AMI available at that moment. Arguably, it sounds kind of dangerous as well to do it that way. But
actually, no. And this is the same. So, and that was the other thing I would like to get back to. So we have a like a stabilization process for Flatcar, which if you scale out and using Flatcar in a like wider field with more nodes, then that's something that you might want to investigate. And that doesn't really, so this assumes that the AMI problem has been solved at some point, or we found a workaround, or we're just updating nodes and then unfortunately they get rebooted. So new releases pass a pretty thorough set of tests before they go out. And so those are scenario tests, like deploy a Kubernetes cluster with a CNI in a latest version and see if everything works. And those are release blocking tests. So if that doesn't work, then we won't release. And even though there are the number of basic tests in there, the scenario tests and the basic tests in some come up to, I think, roughly 100 test cases. So it's a pretty thorough thing. And then we have release channels. So we have an alpha channel, beta, and stable. And even for alpha, the release needs to pass all of the tests. We use alpha for rapid iterations. You will see a lot of new major versions entering alpha. And most of those aren't feature complete. While everything's stable, we're basically iterating on features on alpha. So alpha is not interesting for you if you're not a developer. Beta, however, which is usually cut out of like every second or third alpha major release that we do, beta is considered a fully production ready release. So beta might be the upcoming stable. And what we recommend to users, particularly users that operate larger clusters, is to have 1 or 2 beta nodes as canaries in their clusters, so they see if their workloads kind of digest what the coming features will be. There are still more beta releases than there will be stable releases. So in general, every second or third alpha becomes a beta, and only every second or third major beta release becomes a stable. Stable has a release cadence. New major stable releases come out roughly every 3 months. But in beta, you will already be seeing what is incoming for stable. So that may be interesting to have.
Let me confess here on the record that we use beta all over the place because we had heard from some people on the POPs project, if you're familiar with that at all, that their experience in the past had been that beta was always the way to go. That I take it alpha was perhaps too fragile, but that maybe stable tended to ossify, picking up fixes later than desired. So we've been using beta with so far good results, but I do follow your recommendation that would make more sense to canary it. But one question I have is, what about for security fixes? You mentioned about the release cadence with stable. Does stable change more frequently if there's a security fix available?
So the release cadence for stable that I mentioned every 2 to 3 months, that concerns the major releases. They are always patch level releases going to stable. And the way that works, so if you have, we are using long-term support kernels throughout, right? So alpha, beta, and stable are on the same major kernel version. Just the patch levels differ. So usually new kernel patch levels would first go to alpha and beta at the same time, because the LTS kernel is more or less considered stable. And only a week later, we will release a stable release with the same patch level. Because in the recent past, actually, in the last months, we learned that LTS kernel patch level releases sometimes ship bugs. So we want to have them in beta first. But in general, every 2 to 3 weeks, there will be a new stable patch level release. And that will keep you up to date with the latest patch level fixes, not just for the kernel, like for other stuff that we ship in stable as well, right? But those are only fixes. Those are not minor or major version bumps. regarding security issues, it depends on the severity. It depends on the fact whether Flatcar is even affected or not, because we have some security precautions in there. We have a read-only operating system partition and another of other boundaries that we basically have that shield us from a whole field of security issues. But if there's a high-profile event like the recent OpenSSL event, we're actually part of embargoed email lists. So we get ahead notice of things that are incoming quite often, quite regularly. Upstream projects share under a embargo on a need-to-know basis, even work-in-progress patches that we then ingest and basically iterate on using the test suite that I mentioned earlier. And so that way, we are actually able to stage security releases before, for instance, embargoes lift. If the issue wasn't embargoed and just gets known, you basically rush to ingest fixes and release do an out of band release. If the severity of the issue actually mandates that. And so those go out to all channels.
And that will go out. Is it actually a new, just again talking of the AMIs, will you release a new AMI, or
Yes.
is it that it'll just come by way of a downloaded update?
Both. So we take care of both
after you use
them. All of those. So a release covers both the images that you need for like new provisionings, and that includes AMIs, as well as the update image that we ship. So everything is released at the same time.
I see. I think we're having some bandwidth problems on my end. At least.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. All right. So I mean,
we'll keep investigating. You know what our options are. Right.
Absolutely.
It's good to know how it works.
My recommendations going forward is to at least try out stable. Actually, first to file the issue so people can, more AWS knowledgeable people that I am, can respond to you and help you along with keeping the AMIs that you're referencing up to date. And then more in the long term, take a look at the stable channel and investigate whether your workloads run there as well. And the idea is to have a beta node that serves as a canary. And then if that node encounters any issues, you can basically work directly with us, with upstream, so that, you know, the issue never enters the stable channel. And we basically fix that issue in that way, with, you know, this feedback loop guarantee that your stable workload, your stable clusters remain untouched from incoming issues.
I see. So if we were to report a problem that we saw with the beta channel early enough, that would most likely prevent that bug from creeping into the stable, into the stable channel, right? It would be a sign that we should not advance the stable channel yet until that bug is fixed. Is that right?
Exactly. And I mean, we're very interested in this kind of feedback, obviously, because you wouldn't just be helping yourselves, right? You'd be helping all stable users. And we'd make sure on our end that, you know, this buggy thing does not transition to stable.
Makes sense. Okay. Yeah, we should. I'll be thinking about that, about how to, you know, maybe back off on our very broad use of beta right now, as you said, to allow us to differentiate and look ahead more selectively.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, folks. Any other cool Flatcar stories to share?
Yeah, just to ask a quick question. It's not really a story. I tried searching before the meeting just to learn what I could. I have some coworkers who are interested in using ZFS, and if I can tell just by looking at the files present, Flatcar does not ship with support for ZFS. Is that correct?
That's correct, because we basically ship the vanilla kernel. So we don't have any custom kernel modules or otherwise. We sometimes carry a few lean patches on top, but those would usually address issues. So it would be interesting to investigate ZFS support in the future, be it like as a module, as kind of a spin of the original Flatcar image, or otherwise. And we'd be entirely open for those kind of contributions and discussions. So I just maybe
Okay.
want to start a ZFS discussion in the Flatcar GitHub project.
Yeah, I can't really defend the desire necessarily. I mean, they told me all these great things about it, but I don't know the consequences of that sort of thing shipping built in. I mean, also, I don't know, is it feasible for us to layer on top by maybe using Ignition and some overlay file system stuff?
That would probably work as a kind of stopgap. You could also build custom kernel modules on Flatcar, either automatically or you have your own release process. Mathieu?
Yeah, I just remember that someone from the community asked the same question a couple of months ago. And we have Jeremy that did this C6 image with ZFS tools and module and stuff like that. So maybe I can share it, and Steven, you can give a try. So it relies on, the systemd C6 feature, and it installs the things that we need to install. Not sure if how it works with the kernel, but at least there is this way to explore.
Cool. I'll study that. That's great to see.
And you can join the Matrix channel anytime if you have questions regarding the usage of ZF of C6 feature.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. All right, then let's call it a wrap. Everybody, please enjoy the festive days and have a great journey into the next year. See you in 2023.
See you.
Look
Bye-bye.
forward to it. Bye.
Danielle?
No, sorry. I wanted to mute and click the wrong button.
All right.
Okay, see you.
Ciao.
See you.